Welcome back to Beyond the Cable. I'm your host, Brad Randall, and today we're joined by a special guest, Mike Janssen. He's the Senior Manager of Sales and Engineering at Quantum Fiber, and he's going to talk to us about how Quantum is helping multifamily properties maximize the long-term value of their properties with tailored designs and installation capabilities from Quantum Fiber Internet. So we'll get to Mike in just a moment, but before we do, we are roughly a month out from the Broadband Communities Summit, scheduled for late June in Houston at the George R. Brown Convention Center. Of course, tickets remain available. You can learn more about the summit at bbcmag.com/summit. And Beyond the Cable is the official podcast of bbcmag.com, which is the digital brand of the Broadband Community Summit. Stay tuned to our coverage at bbcmag.com. All things telecommunications, that's what we do best. All right, let's get to our interview with Mike. And now we're joined by Mike Janssen from Quantum Fiber. And Mike, thanks for joining us on Beyond the Cable today.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Well, from what I know about you, we did have our introductory meetings, and I've done some research on you. You seem like a true believer in fiber. Can you tell us why?
Yeah, I'll say I am a big believer in fiber. I can give you a few reasonable reasons without taking up too much of your time this afternoon anyway. As we talk to our customers, ultra fast internet, strong Wi-Fi coverage, it's powering our lives today. So smart home devices, 4K movie streaming, online gaming, remote work, everybody in the house is on devices at all times. Having that fast, reliable, great connection is a massive thing for homeowners. And when you look at it, even from the multifamily homeowners, single family developers, things like that, you can adopt IoT devices for your community and ultimately increase that operating efficiencies for yourself and reduce your operating costs, potentially reduce utility costs, depending how you're using your internet connectivity and all of those fun, happy pieces that play in the background, right? In Quantum Fiber specifically, we've been optimizing our network as much as possible as more and more speed and higher demands come from our customers, building up and optimizing the fiber network and also enhancing our CPE to get up to that 8 gig symmetrical service that we've been advertised in the news, and we're one of the first to the market with using that XGS-PON technology, adding Wi-Fi 7 as a capability, kind of setting that new speed standard for our internet provider base. We like to use that phase. Fiber is always the future-proof technology. We've got a lot of advancements coming with fiber. Using that existing fiber network just gives you that chance to use more and more bandwidth. Now we're starting to see already 8 gig fiber, 8 gig GPON, 25 gig GPON is already coming out, 50 gig and 100 gig GPON are on the horizon. The thing that never has to change is that fiber connectivity. So once that's there, the speed is just bonuses on top of bonuses. Great news that we like to tout for our residential developers, property owners. Fiber doesn't become that technology that needs replacing. Once it's in, once it's up, we've got it there. It's a great investment, increases your property value. I've been looking at technologies with my career over 25 years. Different technologies come, different technologies have gone. A lot of them have had limitations. The one thing that's kind of been holding true, once you get fiber in the ground, fiber into your building, that's where it kind of stops. So it's kind of that technology that we don't change. We want to keep it in the ground. We want to keep it in buildings and keep enhancing that capability.
Well, what I was going to say is I was so glad you brought multi-dwelling units up, MDUs. One of the things we do is we're kind of the convergence of multifamily and connectivity at Broadband Community Summit. So I'm interested to know what is Quantum Fiber's approach when it comes to partnerships with MDU property owners and residential developers?
Quantum Fiber, I'm part of a big group that definitely works very hard on creating those lasting partnerships with developers, with builders, with consultants, and all of those different groups to build that, end-to-end ultimately partnership. We start in our team from pre-planning, engineering through, sales with implementation, construction, completion, and then follow-up work as well. So my team specifically is this team of sales engineers. They're responsible for kind of that pre-planning work, evaluating your developments, communicating with the customers, trying to understand all those technical requirements so we can ultimately help develop a tailored solution for those properties and for those developers to get exactly what they're looking for. Once we get that completion between our sales teams and our teams, get that agreement done, we also have implementation engineering teams, that we communicate with, we work with, and collaborate very tightly with. And keeping track and having that detail oriented dedicated implementation team keeps that project on track, ready, it's on time. We don't want, people don't want to be late. Hey, when I move in, when your customers are ready to move in, we want to know that that service is up and working. And then also, once we have that service operational, we also have a local field op team that now steps in. They take over that relationship. They work with those building owners and customers to make sure things are working, keep the community and the residents happy, keep those building owners happy. They're kind of that one-stop shop for all things once that building's up and going.
So, what if someone has an aging structure, Mike, one that would require a kind of, well, a retrofit, a full retrofit? And, I've covered those in the past that can be quite expensive sometimes. Does the approach differ?
We analyze a lot of those existing structures almost every day, whether it's an existing older apartment building, whether it's a commercial structure that's being converted to apartments. That's a very popular thing lately. It's still at the point of each property kind of has to have its own tailored solution. So we have to go evaluate those buildings. That's again kind of where my team starts as the step in. We go do the site surveys, look at the building, what can we do, what's the best way to go. But one of the things we've noticed, hey, apartment buildings especially want to have that best solution possible, and they can do a lot of things. So, hey, I want to be competitive with brand new buildings. The best way to be competitive with brand new buildings is getting that fiber into the unit. So we're looking at almost in every situation we possibly can, putting fiber all the way to the unit. And I mentioned earlier, I've looked at technologies for years. Brownfield or existing structure is one of those spaces. There's a lot of different solutions that kind of fit niche cases. We've tried quite a few of them. They work very well. They're good, robust technologies. But when you look at that future path, if you're going to start doing work in your building, one of the things we like to see is, hey, if you're going to do the work, let's put in something that we don't have to redo 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road. Here's something that's going to be with you forever. And that's where fiber goes. And from a apartment building owner, they want to stay competitive, but you can also look at it. If you're going to hold on to a property, you want to sell the property, kind of one of those good pieces of improvement they can make to maximize their value is adding that fiber infrastructure that kind of keeps them on par with those brand new greenfields that are going up every single day.
It certainly provides a return on investment, that's for sure. Now, what are some common pain points that you try to avoid with property owners and developers when getting a project started and off the ground?
Yeah, that's always a fun one to evaluate a little bit. I've got two situations that we kind of look at, and they're reasonably similar themed anyway. But the first thing we want to do with any developer is get engaged as fast as possible. So if they know something's going on before you even start moving dirt, you know, bring us in, get us talking. Let's figure out these solutions. It helps us all work together to design that solution uniquely, kind of fits as the best thing for your community, and then ultimately handles also your future needs. And we don't want to jump in. It's hard always, at the end of the day to jump in when projects are too far down the road or things are already built, things are already in place. Now it's almost that brownfield environment versus a greenfield brand new when you don't have things up yet. It gets challenging to get time to design things, get permits, and ultimately at the end of the day, do quality on time work like our customers hopefully expect. And kind of on that same theme, communication is always a key piece when we're in implementation. So post contract, we've now moved on to our implementation and construction teams. The builders have their developers, their GCs, their builders, their trade people. A lot of stuff can be going on with these projects at any given point in time. There's different crews going different directions, different things happening, and trying to manage all of those pieces. That communication has to be constant, has to be quick, has to be detailed. If there's issues, we have to be able to address those situations or assess them, see what's going on, find some solutions, continue to progress. So we need that open, solid, constant communications there. So from our perspective, once we have a contract signed, we start a kickoff call with our builders and our internal teams to make sure everybody kind of knows who everybody is, what the timelines are. We all start the day with that same understanding, and then we can make sure we've got the right coordination going. Everybody knows who the key players are, and how do we make sure we keep this thing all going at time on time. So kind of a dual story, but the ultimate theme there, communication is gigantic on all of these builds to make sure everything works and flows as seamlessly as possible.
That definitely seems like the big keyword there in that answer. And does Quantum Fiber collaborate with other companies when it comes to fiber installations? And if you do, what do you look for in a partner?
So what I'll say, we're looking at growing our fiber network as fast as possible, building out these fiber deployments. So we do have some places we sub out parts of that installation work to other crews, other companies, but we do have a high standard for our companies to do quality work for us. So if we use external resources that we leverage, they have to be in lockstep with us, our implementation and construction teams, making sure we're doing both quality and consistent on-time work. So ultimately, we seek partners. We're looking at companies that kind of share our vision, our dedication to customers, delivering that exceptional service, and they can also help foster good working relationships with those property owners and crews. At the end of the day, Quantum Fiber wants internet customers are going to rely on, and our building owners are proud to say, "Hey, this is in my building," and not have any of those bad conversations coming up. So we want those contractors and developers to be on our side.
Well, and Mike, let's leave with this last question. What current economic conditions are making your job more challenging?
Uh, Changing economic climates impact almost any business. Ours is no different in that particular respect, supply chains, things like that. But we've built a great partnership with a lot of our vendors, a lot of our suppliers. We have a very strong procurement team who's always looking at, hey, what's coming up? How do we make sure we stay in front of things and build those strong relationships? Plus, we also keep in, leverage our strong relationships with our developers and builders across the country. And ultimately, then we can overcome a lot of our supply chain type issues or other things that are impacted by the current economic climate. So one thing I'll say, just from customers' perspective, the thing that's gotten more and more and more demand is the internet. It is internet access. So there is a lot of focus on, hey, I want fast, reliable connectivity, and people will help push that along. Like I say, from an economic concerns, a lot of things get pushed to the back burner anymore. Internet is not one of those things getting pushed back.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, thanks for joining us on Beyond the Cable today to share some of your insights and what's going on at Quantum Fiber. That concludes this episode of Beyond the Cable. I'm your host, Brad Randall, signing out, and we will have more coming up for you soon from Beyond the Cable. Don't miss a beat by subscribing to our newsletter, and stay tuned to our coverage at bbcmag.com. And once again, tickets remain available for the Broadband Community Summit scheduled for late next month, June 23, June 24, and June 25 at the George R. Brown Convention Center in Houston. Get your tickets at bbcmag.com/summit. Until next time, thanks for joining us.